We are less than 1 month away from the presidential election, and everybody wants to know who will win, Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, the national polling average has him winning by almost double digits. Over at the RCP average, Trump v. Biden, 51.3 in favor of Biden, 42.1 for Trump, a 9.2 lead. And already I can hear the noise. Trump supporters saying, Tim, the national polling doesn't matter. The battleground states are what's important. Will Donald Trump win the Electoral College? Unfortunately, Joe Biden is up 4.3 points among key battleground states, suggesting that Joe Biden's going to win. In fact, the polling is worse for Trump now than it was with Hillary Clinton in 2016. And 538 has reduced the likelihood in their statistical model as to whether or not Donald Trump will actually win. So I'm sorry to say to all those Trump supporters, if Donald Trump were to actually win, it would be the biggest upset probably in American history. And maybe, in all fairness, he's actually going to lose. I don't know for sure, but I can tell you this. We have new data, relatively new. It's from the past couple of months, and new data on voter enthusiasm, which suggests there's a good reason why Donald Trump may just pull off one of the biggest upsets ever. Now, of course, people are concerned about mail-in voting, the legitimacy of the vote, and the censorship that we're seeing. But this might not matter all that much. Trump may still win the Electoral College, and he may win by thin margins, because according to a new study, there actually are secret voters, and most of them are moderates who are scared to say they'll vote for Trump. Even though the pollsters say, trust us, no one will ever find out. Long speculated. We've believed that these moderate voters would not reveal they would be voting for Trump because they're scared. It's not socially acceptable. I mean, come on. You want to be liked by Jimmy Kimmel, right? And Sarah Silverman? Well, then you gotta hate Trump. But most people are probably sick and tired of cancel culture, the far left, and they like the economy. Because when it comes to polling, the area where Trump wins, the economy. He's beating Biden. And as they always say, or at least since the 90s, it's the economy, stupid. You got to see this stuff from Cloud Research. We got a bunch of PhDs showing us they've done the research, but it's not just about the secret voters. Pew Research actually tells us straight up, people do lie to pollsters. It's interesting. But more importantly, although voter enthusiasm is running high, Donald Trump is dominating that enthusiasm. And most people who say they're going to vote for Biden are not enthusiastic about it. However, they are enthusiastic for voting against Donald Trump. Now, that would be bad news for Trump if only this was remarkable. According to Gallup, it's not. Voter turnout looks like it's going to be steady. That means there's not going to be a big boon in Democrat voters, what they needed to defeat Trump now. And if it's true that Trump's favorability is higher today than when he got first elected, and his approval rating is higher than the average for his entire presidency, and his base has only grown, New York Times said as much, with enthusiasm running high, but for Trump, and voter turnout expected to be steady, Donald Trump victory. Now, we don't know for sure. And I think hubris will be the downfall of the Trump voter. Of course, you know that I've said recently, I'm going to be voting for Trump for a lot of reasons. I can't believe people would actually support Biden. And I'm not the biggest fan of Trump either. But they've got me, you know. It's one of these, the most important election of our lives, they say. This time I really believe it. 131 days of rioting, intersectionality, critical race theory. I mean, it looks like our values and institutions are being threatened. Now we've got the New York Times publishing an op-ed, I kid you not, calling for international intervention into the United States. Yeah, maybe this really is one of the most important elections we'll ever see. Let me show you this study and reveal to you what several PhDs found, the Trump secret voter. This could be Trump's secret weapon that everyone's long speculated exists. Now, maybe that's not really the silent majority, but it's a silent group that's enough to give Donald Trump the lead because they show that a decent amount of individuals, from Republicans to moderates, actually support Trump but lie about it. Let's read this, but before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do is share this video. Maybe this information is important. Maybe there's a lot of people who don't know it exists and they need to, because they need to realize that Trump can still win this. If you think I do a better job than the mainstream media, then the best thing you can do is share this video to help me grow and compete with them, because I don't got that marketing budget they do. But also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let's read the news. Cloud Research says, study, are election 2020 poll respondents honest about their vote? From several different PhDs. I'll just put it that way. I'm not going to read everybody's name. They say background. Lately, there's been considerable debate over the accuracy of presidential polls. While recent polls show Joe Biden ahead, a number of pundits speculate that some Donald Trump supporters may be hesitant to share their true opinions when polled by phone. That hypothesis is gaining traction, leading some to argue that Trump may be leading despite what the latest numbers show. It's also being fueled by the belief that 2020 will be a repeat of the 2016 election, when Trump polled poorly in advance of the election, but still went on to win the Electoral College vote. The strategy they're using, it's also the same strategy from 2016. We're seeing these massive poll gains for Joe Biden. Michelle Obama has come out and accused Trump of being racist. Here we go again. Chris Wallace asking Donald Trump the exact same question he asked last time. Will you denounce white supremacy, Donald Trump? He did it last time. He did it again. Just not good enough, I suppose. They say despite the current debate on whether there are segments of Trump or Biden backers reticent to express their true opinions in phone polls, there's been little empirical investigation into if the phenomenon actually exists. Pundits on major broadcasts and cable news networks such as Fox News and CNN continue to speculate on the potential impact of so-called shy Trump voters on the outcome of the November presidential election result. In a recent article published in the New York Times, David Winston says the following: the idea that people lie, it's an interesting theory, and it's not like it's completely off the wall, but it's obviously a very complicated thing to try to prove, because what do? Ask them, are you lying? On its face, a poll that asks people whether they lie in phone polls may not make much sense. After all, why would a person who lies in a telephone poll tell the truth about that in a different online poll? We here at Cloud Research reasoned that the issue may be methodological. To explore the issue, we restructured our survey to overcome shortcomings of previous polls. Instead of simply asking voters whom they will vote for, and then ask whether they just lied, we centered our research around a general question. Are you comfortable in truthfully disclosing the presidential candidate you intend to vote for in a telephone poll? Our rationale for this approach was that there's a major difference between admitting you just lied and admitting to be genuinely concerned about disclosing your preferred candidate. For the most part, we expected to find very few shy voters. After all, telephone surveys are supposed to be anonymous. So why would people be reluctant to share their opinions? However, to the extent people said they were reluctant to express their voting preferences on a telephone poll, we were interested in their rationale for their reluctance. As a result, we included open-ended follow-up questions to better understand the factors that drive voters to fudge their responses. Our survey was conducted with 1,000 participants on Cloud Research's Prime Panels platform, which draws from a combination of online research panels. What we found: 11.7% of Republicans say they would not report their true opinions about their preferred presidential candidate on telephone polls. In contrast, just 5.4% of Democrats say they'd be reluctant to share their true voting intentions, roughly half the number of Republicans. 10.5% of independents fell into the shy voter category, just a percentage point lower than how Republicans react to phone polls. Now that right there is truly fascinating. And that's what you got to consider. 10% of independents. Well, depending on which poll you're looking at, they would weigh, I think recently I was looking at one poll, it said like 26% of those who responded were independent voters. So imagine you have a 2.6, slightly higher margin of error in those polls. But then take a look at 11.7% of Republicans. So you're looking at around a 6% margin of error, including their existing margin of error, which could theoretically get you, to be fair, let's just say 7%, just based off of these numbers of shy voters. 7% is massive. Now, take the national polling average, where Biden is up 9.2, factor in the shy voter, and Biden's advantage is only around 2 points. That's what Hillary Clinton had when she won, in which case Donald Trump could still be on track to win the Electoral College. Now, mind you, this is very speculative because my math is fast and loose. My math could be wrong. But look at this, man. 10.5% of independents are shy voters. So they're probably going to vote for Trump. We saw a poll recently from the Cato Institute that said 62% of people were actually scared to share their true opinions out of fear of offending someone. The only group of people who felt confidence in expressing their opinion were strong liberals, which was the furthest left option you could actually take. Let's read a little bit more, and then we'll look at some more data about secret Trump voters. They say, after asking about people expressing their true opinions on telephone calls, we then inquired about their preferred candidate. This ordering was important as we did not want to fall into the same trap as other pollsters who tend to lead with preference declarations when we broke the responses down based on current Trump v. Biden supporters. We found the following. 10.1% of Trump supporters said they were likely to be untruthful on phone surveys, doubling the number of Biden supporters reticent to share their true intentions. So I don't know how many people are scared to say they'll vote for Biden. That makes no sense to me. But to be fair, we don't necessarily know how that will play out. If 10% of Trump supporters were going to be untruthful, then it sounds like the national polling for Biden could be wrong. And like we saw with the Sunday Express poll that Donald Trump himself tweeted out, Trump is actually up by 1 point. And that makes sense. Think about it. If the national polling average right now, according to most polls, has Joe Biden at 9 points above Trump, but there is a 10 percentage point of shy Trump secret voters, invert that, Trump goes up 1 point over Biden. Now that should be truly fascinating to everybody. When respondents indicated that they were untruthful during polls, we followed up to confirm those responses and then inquired as to why shy voters are concerned. Here's what they found. Quote, I don't believe the information would be confidential, and I think it's dangerous to express an opinion outside of the current liberal viewpoint. Quote, well, I probably wouldn't give my opinion, period, but if pushed, I would not give my real opinion for fear of reprisal if someone found out. Another one, because most polls released to the public are slanted and aren't scientifically based. So they are messing with the results of the survey from the beginning by knocking down one party or the other. I'm just trying to right the ship. I am hounded day and evening by phone solicitors. They interrupt me all the time. Sometimes my irritation takes over and I don't answer correctly. My answers could be recorded, so I don't really trust phone conversations. I do not discuss politics, let alone with a stranger on the telephone. I don't always trust phone surveys. I wouldn't want to be bombarded with phone calls and political mail. I don't want my opinion associated with my phone number. I am less anonymous and somewhat ashamed of my opinion as it is frowned upon. That all sounds like Donald Trump voters. In general, 6 concerns: a lack of trust in phone polls, of being anonymous, an apprehension to associate their numbers with their responses, fear that their responses will become public, fear of reprisal, a general dislike of polls, malicious intent to mislead polls, to general distrust of media and political pundits. All of these things are basically on par with a Trump voter. 10 percentage points, 10. That would put Trump 1 point above Biden in the national average. To me, that makes sense. You know why? I was asked by Jack Murphy. He's the man who wrote Democrat to Deplorable. From Democrat, 9 million people switched and voted for Donald Trump. He asked me, do you believe the conditions today that led to Donald Trump's victory are better or worse? And I said, I think things have gotten worse. And that's like critical race theory and the Title IX stuff in colleges, social justice, cancel culture. And he said, right. So why wouldn't regular people finally be like, enough? The media, the lies, the conspiracies, the endless nonsense, just make it stop. And we're not going to make it stop by empowering the people that do it. You make it stop by empowering the man to shut down the insanity, the riots, for instance. Now, you can't shut down the fake news. And the fake news might thrive under a Donald Trump second term. But people aren't, I don't think Americans are going to be like, well, you've been berating me and bashing me over the head with this. I'm going to vote for you. I think they're going to be like, I'm an American. You tell me to do something I don't want to do. I say F you. Interestingly, this data is also mirrored in a statement and a frequently asked question from Pew Research. Now, Pew Research is very credible. Check this out. Do people lie to pollsters? We know that not all survey questions are answered accurately, but it's impossible to say that any given inaccurate answer necessarily involves lying. People may simply not remember their behavior. They basically go on to say that some people will tell them they voted for one person, and they'll actually look it up and find the person lied to them. Or maybe the person was just wrong. It's a good distinction. Lying means they intend to deceive. Maybe the people just don't know. They say, we take steps to minimize errors related to questions about socially desirable or undesirable activities. For example, questions about voter registration and voting usually acknowledge that not everyone takes part in elections. Pew Research Center's voter registration question is worded this way. Quote, these days, many people are so busy they can't find time to register to vote or move around so often they don't get a chance to re-register. Are you now registered to vote in your precinct or election district, or haven't you been able to register so far? I don't like that idea. I think you have to ask direct questions, and if people lie, well, then you've got to figure that out. Asking them a misleading question by pre-framing it is a manipulation. But more importantly, they straight up say, people are wrong. People give you answers that are not correct. Take into consideration this. October 6, 2020 from Gallup. Voter turnout appears steady. Enthusiasm running high. Now, a lot of people see this. And my first reaction to this was, whoa, we are going to see massive turnout. And that may be Trump's defeat. Now, maybe the voter turnout works in Trump's favor because Trump supporters are extremely enthusiastic. But as much as people aren't enthusiastic for Biden, they are enthusiastic for voting against Donald Trump. And then I read more. It's actually not a big deal. Gallup says it's not remarkable, that it's actually kind of normal. Gallup's thought given to the election question has been strongly related to voter turnout in past presidential elections. Thus, the current finding is signaling that turnout of the voting age population is on track to be similar to that in 2012 and 2016 elections, which was in the 55% to 56% range. Voter turnout was higher in 2008, when 80% of Americans in September and 81% just before the election were giving the campaign quite a lot of thought. Turnout was also on the high side, close to 57%. In 2004, when the final thought given reading was 84%, turnout was markedly lower in 2000. Thought typically increases in the final month before the election, although whether that plays out this year, given that early voting will be starting earlier than ever, remains to be seen. Turnout among independents could be lower. Now, this is interesting. This may be the actual fatigue. Independents saying, I don't care, leave me alone. And we're seeing that partisan politics will take shape. Americans giving quite a lot of thought to the election by party, the Republicans have the advantage. Enthusiasm about voting is relatively high, but as they noted, they're expecting this to be on par with past elections. That is horribly bad news for the Democrats because they need mass voting turnout in order to win. Now, of course, COVID may have changed things. Donald Trump may be hurting because of it. Based on projections from last year into early this year, Moody's Analytics, for instance, I believe it was last year, said Democrats need historic turnout to win. That's why the Democrats have been going nuts trying to remove voter ID, trying to, create mass mailing, universal mail-in voting, because they're desperately trying to increase their numbers. It's cheating to deceptively give yourself an unfair advantage, but they're trying. And now we're seeing all of these problems with mail-in voting, and they're blaming Trump for it. Here's the bottom line. Gallup's long used thought given to the election question suggests that 2020 will be a fairly typical year in overall turnout. Oh, man. If Americans' level of election attention continues to increase over the next month, as it normally would, that is also assuming voters, particularly the Republicans, who as of now are far more likely than Democrats to plan on voting in person, ultimately activate on their propensity to vote. Here's what you got to do. Go tell people to vote. We can see all of the polls suggesting that Joe Biden is going to win. Donald Trump is losing. We got some battleground polls here. But in the end, they're not going to get the turnout they need. You know what was really fascinating to me is that the ratings for the first debate were down. They were down about like 14 or 15 million, I believe, from 2016's first debate. And it could be because many people migrated to online platforms for viewership, like I did. I watched the debates for last time on TV. I watched it this time on YouTube. That could be a reason. Or it could be that for all the fervor and all the insanity, people just don't care. They're sick of the politics. I was talking to a local in my new area who said she used to love watching football. She can't do it anymore because it's nothing but politics and Black Lives Matter. So she's tuned it all out. That could mean that regular people are not being activated by this Black Lives Matter protest. In fact, it's probably turning regular people off because they're sick of the riots. Now, while I can sit here and say, look at all these good things for Donald Trump, you would be a fool to believe he's got it in the bag. And the best thing you can do is go out and bring 3 friends with you to go vote. And look, to be fair, you guys know I'm voting for Trump, but if you're a Biden supporter as well and you hate Trump, same rule applies. You better bring your friends out to vote. Vote, 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 vote. I think it's funny. I had very little faith in the elections in 2016. I didn't bother. Then Trump won and I was like, there's no way the game is fixed. Like they tried cheating for sure. But you can actually, if Donald Trump can win, anybody can win. So as much as I'm like, it would be nuts if Joe Biden won, the dude could probably win, man. And that would be nuts. Heaven forbid we get, someone like that. Yikes. That's all I can say. Check this out. Biden leads Trump by 12 points in Pennsylvania. And that to me is shockingly absurd. But I think I have an answer to this. while I will first stress, absolutely, you better consider this. Like, they're coming for you, Trump. They're going to come and they're going to take everything. And the polls are in their favor. I think I want to highlight this information for one reason. You're going to hear the polls in favor of Biden over and over and over again. And there really is a reason Trump may win. Hey, he won in 2016. Why is it that Biden leads Trump by 12 points? Maybe it's because people have been activated. You're right. They see the NFL, they see the NBA, they see the protests, and they say, okay, me too. I'll be on board with this. But it doesn't mean they actually care. It means they get a phone call and they're like, do you agree with Biden? Oh, yeah, yo, Biden, of course I do. Okay, thank you, bye. And they click and then start eating their chips again. Then election day shows up and they're like, oh, yeah, it was election day. Hey, do you guys want to go see a movie or something? Oh, the movie theaters are all closed. Oh, you guys want to put on the game? Oh, it's all Black Lives Matter. Let's play Call of Duty. I don't think they're going to be all that enthusiastic. I don't think they're going to show up to vote. So the polls may be, I'll put it this way. You berate someone over and over again, they'll probably be like, yeah, I'm all on board. But is their enthusiasm really there? Nope. As evidenced by this, Pennsylvania GOP closed voter registration gap by over 160,000 since 2016. But Democrats point to 2020 voter new edge. Pennsylvania is said to be one of the most important states. Across Pennsylvania, we're seeing something fascinating. The GOP is registering more in several key counties than the Democrats are. They're closing the gap. Will the Democrats actually care to go out and vote? Gallup says it's going to be a typical year. That's it. The Democrats won't pull out that voter turnout. We still have a month. And a month in 2020 may as well be 20 years. So who knows what's going to happen next? Trump could do a backflip off the balcony of the White House, superhero landing, craters in the ground. And then Joe Biden is throwing chickens and who knows what's coming. Because it's been absolutely insane. Did you know it was only 2 weeks ago that 3 weeks ago, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed? Was it 3 weeks ago? Man, it feels like a lifetime ago. And then Amy Coney Barrett's nominated. Then Trump gets COVID. What's going on? And the riots are all still happening. Seems like everything's going crazy. The Democrats are desperate to win for a lot of reasons. And in my personal opinion, I think it's because there's probably some impropriety that occurred among the Obama administration in sabotaging the Trump administration as they came in. Michael Flynn, for instance. We've seen enough evidence to suggest that a crime may have taken place. We'll see what the Durham probe actually unveils. But the fear now is that if Trump loses, the Durham probe goes bye-bye, and there will be nothing. The Mueller investigation was started under Trump. And it ended under Trump. And you can argue that Trump was obstructing and all that nonsense, but they never actually proved it. They never actually said Trump obstructed. You got all these Democrats saying Trump will go to prison if he loses. And that's wishful thinking. That's not going to happen. I mean, to be fair, at this point in the polls, giving reasons why Trump might win is also wishful thinking, to be honest. We just don't know. And there's good reason to suggest Biden will win. So you better go drag people to the polls. But I believe that there is a real fear among many of these administration Democrats, former administration, that should the Durham probe continue, they're going to get in trouble. We've already seen I believe it's an ex-FBI lawyer was altering emails, basically making false evidence. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of process crime. I'm not convinced Obama is going to jail or anything like that. That's wishful thinking for sure. But I think there's a lot of people who are terrified, and so they're pulling out all the stops. For whatever reason, Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden not to concede under any circumstances, which is weird. Until when? The Supreme Court rules in Trump's favor? And we already saw from the war games that that John Podesta, as Joe Biden, would rather see the West Coast secede from the Union in some kind of weird Civil War redux than actually lose to Donald Trump. And I have to wonder why. Is the world ending? Come on, Trump's not that bad. One thing that should be considered, however, is that the race isn't just Donald Trump. Democrats are favored to win the Senate. Perhaps with Trump's secret vote, people are going to vote Republican down ticket, and this could be wrong. But the most important reason to consider why the Democrats are favored to take the Senate is simply because there are more Republican seats up for grabs. There are 23 Republican seats facing re-election and only 12 Democratic seats. And that means that the Democrats have an advantage. They have more area to attack. The Republicans have less. But if Trump's secret voter is real, red wave, baby. So I don't know. This could be scary to a Democrat and good news to a Republican. But I'll tell you this, regardless of where you fall, you need to go and find 3 friends who are kind of like, I'm not really paying attention. and you need to bring them to the polls. You need to tell people to go out and vote. Everybody go vote. That's what we want. We want everyone in this country to vote. And I'll tell you this right now. I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump. I've made a video about explaining I like his second term agenda. If Joe Biden wins, I'll be disappointed. And that's, unfortunate to say the least. But I'm not going to cry about it. If Biden wins, I will laugh. I'll laugh and I'll do what I can to just carry on. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. It'll be 4 years and we'll see what happens. But you better do everything in your power to canvass and do everything within normal legal election stuff, like telling your friends, getting your friends to vote. People who may not be politically activated, like Michelle Obama said. She's right on that point. And bringing them out to the polls. Have them vote. It's the best thing you can do. We will see how things play out in about 28 days. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/TimCastNews. It is my other channel, and that will be at 6 p.m. So again, thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.